All right, thanks, guys. Happy Wednesday to you. We went 4-0 in our premium selections yesterday on patreon.com/BrockPage. We're also hitting 68% in college football on that website. We do daily plays on that site beginning at just $1.99 per month. Link for that site is in the description section below. Now let's go ahead and dive into college football week 9, beginning with SMU taking on Houston, and that's going to be a 7:30 Eastern kickoff this Thursday night. SMU's minus 14.5, total 65 and a hook. We saw a 1.5 point move toward SMU. We also saw movement downward on the total. The Mustangs opened 13 up to 14.5. Total opened 66.5 down to 65 and a hook. 63% of the consensus are leaning toward SMU. 62% shaded toward the over. Right now, Houston is plus 510 at home. Houston's just 3-4 straight up on the year, 3-4 against the number. They also rank 114th in passing. Now, SMU on the other side, 7-0 straight up on the year, 6-1 against the number, 6th in scoring on average per game. Now, total-wise, Houston is 4-2 to the under in their last 6, taking on SMU. I'm going to purchase the 0.5 point, slide it down, and take SMU minus 14 and the under 65.5. Next matchup, it is going to be Appalachian State taking on South Alabama. 12 o'clock Eastern kickoff this Saturday. Appalachian State is minus 26, total 51.5. Saw a 0.5 point move toward Appalachian State, movement downward on the total. Appy State open 25.5 up to 26. Total open 52 down to 51 and a hook. 74% are leaning Appalachian State, 81% shaded toward the over. Right now, South Alabama is plus 2,000 on the money line. They're also just 1-6 straight up on the year, 3-4 against the number. Appy State on the other side, 6-0 on the year, 5-1 against the number. They rank 10th in scoring on average per game. Now, total-wise, we're looking at a South Alabama squad who is 6-1 to the under. I'm going to lean Appalachian State minus 26 and the under 51.5 in that game. Next matchup, it is going to be Iowa taking on Northwestern, 12 o'clock at Northwestern. The Hawkeyes are 10.5, total 37 and a hook. So a 1 point move toward Iowa and moving downward on the total. The Hawkeyes open 9.5 up to 10.5. Total open 38 down to 37 and a hook. 62% are leaning Iowa, 54% shaded toward the over. Right now, Northwestern is plus 330 on the money line. They're also just 1-5 straight up on the year, 2-4 against the spread. The Wildcats rank 129th in scoring on average per game. Now, the Hawkeyes on the other side, a little bit different story. They're 5-2 straight up overall for the year, 7th in offensive time of possession, 5th in points allowed. Now, total-wise, Iowa's 6-1 to the under for the year. Northwestern 4-2 to the under for the year themselves. I'm going to buy the hook, slide it down, and lean Iowa minus 10 and the under 37.5. And before we go ahead and move on, just want to take another quick timeout and welcome you to the show. Got some lines of personal leans out for college football week 9. But before we dive into some more of that, just want to quickly remind you once again to check me out on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage, where we went 4-0 in our premium selections yesterday on that site. We're also hitting 68% in college football. We do daily plays on that site, and we have a bunch of different memberships, tiers, and packages that you can subscribe to, beginning at just $1.99 per month. You can also access my current record right on the homepage. Link for that site is in the description section below. That is patreon.com/BrockPage. All right, let's go ahead and dive back into some more lines of personal leans. All starts Eastern Standard Time. And on deck, we've got Oklahoma taking on Kansas State. And that is going to be a 12 o'clock Eastern kickoff in that matchup. Oklahoma's 23.5, total 57 and a hook. Saw a 2.5 point move toward the Sooners and movement downward on the total. Oklahoma open 21 up to 23.5. Total open 59 down to 57 and a hook. 67% are leaning Oklahoma. 84% shaded toward the over. Right now, K-State is plus 1375 on the money line. The Wildcats are 4-2 straight up overall, 4-2 against the number. They rank second in offensive time of possession in college football. They're also fifth in passing yards allowed. Now, Oklahoma, on the other side, they rank 69th in defensive time of possession. They've also failed to cover in 2 out of their last 3. And when it comes to the total, Oklahoma is 2-0 to the under when traveling. K-State is 75% to the under at home. I'm going to purchase the hook, buy it up, and take K-State plus 24 and the under 57.5. Next game, Wisconsin taking on Ohio State. And that is going to be a 12 o'clock Eastern kickoff in that game. Ohio State's minus 14, total at 51. 62% are leaning Buckeyes, 56% shaded toward the over. Right now, Wisconsin's plus 485 on the money line. The Badgers have failed to cover in 8 out of their last 10 head-to-head matchups with Ohio State. They're also just 1-4 ATS in their last 5 at Ohio Stadium. One more thing to add about Wisconsin. They've lost their last 6 straight to Ohio State, and they rank 98th in pass yards per game on average. Now, Ohio State on the other side, they are 7-0 straight up on the year, 6-1 against the number, 4th in scoring, 3rd in rushing. And when it comes to the total, Ohio State is 4-3 to the over thus far on the season. They're also 6-2 to the over in their last 8 games played in the month of October. If you're into historical trends, I'm going to lean Ohio State minus 14 and the over 51 in that game. Next matchup, Auburn, LSU. And that's going to be a 3:30 Eastern kickoff at Tiger Stadium. LSU's minus 10, total 58.5. Saw a 2-point move toward LSU and movement downward on the total. The Tigers open minus 8, up to minus 10. Total open 59.5, down to 58 and a hook. 55% are leaning LSU, 61% shaded toward the under. Right now, Auburn's plus 325 on the money line. Auburn ranks 102nd in passing, 75th in pass yards allowed. They've also dropped 7 out of their last 10 head-to-head matchups with LSU. The Tigers on the other side, 7-0 straight up on the year, 6-1 against the spread, 3-1 ATS at home. They also rank 1st in scoring, 2nd in passing, 11th in rush yards allowed. Now, total-wise, Auburn is 3-1 to the under when traveling. I'm going to lean LSU minus 10 and the under 58.5 in that matchup. Next game, Maryland taking on Minnesota. And I haven't even looked. I'm not sure if that's going to be on my board or not. Yes, it is. Maryland at Minnesota, 3:30 Eastern kickoff at the Golden Gophers. Minnesota's minus 17, total 57. Saw a 2-point move toward Minnesota and movement upward on the total. The Gophers open 15, up to 17. Total open 56.5, up to 57. 57% of the consensus are leaning Minnesota. 84% leaning toward the over. Right now, Maryland is plus 600 on the road. They're also just 3-4 straight up on the year, 113th in pass yards allowed. Minnesota on the other side still undefeated, 7-0 straight up on the year, 5-2 against the number, 6th in home offensive time of possession. When it comes to the total, Minnesota's 3-1 to the under at home, Maryland 2-1 to the under when traveling. Give me the Golden Gophers minus 17 and the under 57 in that game. Next matchup, Oklahoma State taking on Iowa State. 3:30 Eastern kickoff at the Cyclones. Iowa State's minus 10.5, total 63. Saw a 2.5-point move toward Iowa State, movement downward on the total. The Cyclones open 8, up to 10.5. Total open 65.5, down to 63. 57% are leaning Oklahoma State. 65% shaded toward the over. Right now, the Cowboys are plus 320 on the money line. They're also 5-2 against the spread for the year, 11th in scoring, 7th in rushing. Iowa State on the other side, 64th in home scoring allowed. They're also 74th in pass yards allowed at home, and they've dropped 8 out of their last 10 straight up to Oklahoma State. Now, total-wise, Iowa State is 3-1 to the over at home. The Cowboys on the other side, 4-3 to the over overall for the year. I'm going to buy the hook, slide it up, and take OK State plus 11. And the over 63. Next matchup, Penn State, Michigan State, 3:30 Sparty. Penn State's minus 6.5, total 44 and a hook. Saw a 0.5-point move toward the Nittany Lions and movement upward on the total. Penn State open 6, up to 6.5. Total open 42, up to 44 and a hook. 67% are leaning Penn State, 68% shaded toward the under. Right now, Michigan State is plus 210 on the money line. They've also failed to cover in 5 out of their last 7 games. They're just 1-3 ATS at home. They rank 112th in rushing, 95th in defensive time of possession. Now, Penn State, on the other side, they are 9th in scoring, 3rd in points allowed, 3rd in rush yards allowed. They're a perfect 7-0 straight up on the year. Total-wise, Penn State 2-0 to the under on the road. Michigan State 4-3 to the under for this season. I'm going to buy the hook, slide it down, and take Penn State -6 and the under 44.5. Next matchup, Texas taking on TCU. 3:30 Eastern kickoff in that game. We had a good old-fashioned flip of the lines in this one. Texas right now is -1 with a total of 59, but we saw a 3-point move toward Texas as they opened +2. So once again, the Longhorns open +2, now -1. Total open 61, down to 59. 71% are leaning Longhorns, 65% shaded toward the over. Right now, the Horned Frogs of TCU are +103 on the money line. TCU is 3-3 straight up on the year, 2-4 against the spread. They've also dropped 3 out of their last 4 games. They lost to K-State, Iowa State, and SMU in those games. TCU is also 87th in passing, 56th in points allowed. Now the Longhorns on the other side, they are 13th in scoring, 8th in offensive time of possession on the road. They're 5-2 straight up overall for the year, 3-0 against the spread when traveling. Now total-wise, Texas is 5-2 to the over for the year. TCU 2-1 to the over at home. I'm going to lean Longhorns -1 in the over 59 in that game. Next matchup, Arkansas taking on Alabama. And that's going to be a 7 o'clock Eastern kickoff in that contest. Alabama's -32, total 55.5. We did see a 2-point fade of Bama and movement downward on the total. Crimson Tide open 34, down to 32. Total open 57.5, down to 55 and a hook. 55% of the consensus are leaning toward Alabama, 56% shaded toward the over. Right now, the Razorbacks are +57.50 on the money line. Now, typically, I don't go over individual players. You know, you can get that information on ESPN and Fox Sports, FS1. You can get it on your phone, on your app. You probably get daily updates about it. And that's why I don't typically cover that because, well, you can get that anywhere. I want to cover something unique. But I can't neglect the fact that Tua will not be playing for Alabama this week. Tua Tagovailoa is out for this week. Arkansas on the other side, 13th in pass yards allowed on the road, 4-1 against the number in their last 5, taking on the Crimson Tide. Now, when it comes to the number, Arkansas is 5-2 to the under for the year, 3-0 to the under away from home. I'd lean toward the Razorbacks. I got to lean toward the Razorbacks +32 and the under 55.5 in that game. Next matchup, Arizona State taking on UCLA. And that game is currently not on our board. Arizona State's -3.5, total 55 and a hook. Saw a 0.5 point move toward Arizona State, movement upward on the total. The Sun Devils open -3, up to 3.5. Total open 54.5, up to 55 and a hook. 68% are leaning Arizona State, 60% shaded toward the over. Right now, UCLA is +155 on the money line. The Bruins are just 2-5 straight up on the year. They failed to cover in 5 out of those 7 games. The Bruins rank 121st in home scoring. They're also 120th in yards per play at home. Now, Arizona State on the other side, they are 6th in points allowed on the road, 12th in rushing yards allowed, and they are 5-2 straight up on the year. Now, total-wise, Arizona State is 5-2 to the under, 3-0 to the under away from home. Great defense under Herm Edwards. Meanwhile, on the UCLA side of things, they are 4-3 to the under on the season, 2-1 to the under at home. I'm going to purchase the hook, slide it down, and take Arizona State -3 and the under 55.5 in that game. Next matchup, Boston College taking on Clemson. And that is going to be not on our board as well. I should really look at these games before we get on the air here. But anyway, Boston College taking on Clemson, 7:30 Eastern kickoff in that game. Clemson's 33.5, total 58 and a hook. We saw a 1.5 point fade of Clemson and movement downward on the total. The Tigers opened 35 down to 33.5. Total opened 61 and a hook, all the way down to 58.5. 57% are leaning Boston College, 58% shaded toward the under. BC is 81st in points allowed, 117th in pass yards allowed. They're also 100th in rush yards allowed. Now Clemson on the other side, 14th in scoring, 15th in rushing. They're perfect 7-0 straight up on the year, 5-2 against the number. When it comes to the total, Boston College is 5-2 to the over. Give me Clemson minus 33.5 and the over 58 and a hook. Next game, Notre Dame taking on Michigan, 7:30 Eastern kickoff at Michigan Stadium. The Wolverines are favored in this matchup here. Michigan's -1, total 51. 68% are leaning Notre Dame, 62% leaning toward the under. Right now, the Fighting Irish are -102 on the money line. They're also 5-1 straight up on the year, 4-2 against the spread. Notre Dame ranks 15th in scoring, 13th in points allowed. Now, Michigan is 81st in rushing, 109th in offensive time of possession. They also rank 83rd in passing at home. They failed to cover in 4 out of their 7 ball games this year. When it comes to the total, Notre Dame on the other side, 4-2 to the under for the year, 2-0 to the under on the road. I'm going to lean Fighting Irish +1 and the under 51 in that matchup there. Next game, Cal taking on Utah, and that's another one that is not on our board, but that is going to be a 10 o'clock Eastern kickoff at Utah. The Utes are 21.5, total 37 and a hook. We saw a 3.5 point move toward Utah, movement downward on the total. Utah open 18 up to 21.5, total open 38.5 down to 37 and a hook. 56% are leaning Utah, 75% shaded toward the over. Right now, the Golden Bears are +1050 on the money line. They're also 4-3 straight up overall for the year, 19th in points allowed, 35th in yards per play allowed. They are 6-0 against the number in their last 6 on the road, dating back to last season. Now, Utah on the other side, just 3-4 against the number in their last 7 head-to-head matchups with Cal. They rank 69th in passing, 65th in pass yards allowed. I think this is a pretty good spot for Cal backers, considering how good their defense has been. I'm going to lean Cal +21.5 in the over 37 and a hook in that game. And we are going to slide into our next and final matchup for the show. It is going to be Washington State taking on Oregon, 10:30 Eastern kickoff in that matchup. Oregon's -14, total 64.5. 62% of the consensus are leaning Oregon, 56% leaning toward the under. Right now, Washington State is +470 on the money line. They're also just 1-5 against the spread in their last 6. Washington State is 99th in points allowed, 116th in pass yards allowed. Meanwhile, Oregon on the other side, they are 20th in scoring at home, 26th in passing, 6-1 straight up overall for the year, 4-3 against the spread. When it comes to the total, Oregon is 5-2 to the under overall for the year, 3-1 to the under at home. I'm going to lean Oregon Ducks -14 and the under 64.5 in that game. All right, guys, that is going to do it for me. Once again, don't forget to check me out on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage, where we went 4-0 in our premium selections yesterday for Tuesday. We're also hitting at 68% for the college football season on that website. We do daily plays on that site. We have a bunch of different memberships, tiers, and packages that you can subscribe to, beginning at just $1.99 per month. You can also access my current record right there on the homepage. That is patreon.com/BrockPage. But most importantly, I got to thank you for tuning in right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. Happy Wednesday to you. Best of luck to you. And don't forget to check me out on patreon.com/BrockPage.